game ball. Sir.
In this week's edition of Inside Sports, we turn the microscope on athletics, where we'll be looking at the JAAA's role in the development of track and field, the preparation of national senior and junior championships, as well as planning and preparation for the Olympics. When we return, the conversation begins. Welcome back to Inside Sports. I'm Nodley Wright. With me to discuss the JAAA's role in the development of track and field, the national senior and junior trials, as well as the planning process for the Tokyo Olympics, is Master Starter and Treasurer for the Jamaica Administrative Athletics Association, Mr. Ludlow Watts. Sir Ludlow, welcome.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. Sir Ludlow, we're going to start easily, just ease into it. What is the role of the JAAA's?
Okay, the JAAA facilitates the development of track and field in Jamaica. For instance, we provide active competition for athletes. For instance, what has happened this year, between February and 2 weeks ago, we expended $64 million on all those destiny meets and all the qualifying trials that we have been giving to the athletes. You know that a number of the athletes have not been earning because of the result of COVID. Some of them would have had places in the Diamond League that is not been taking place because of COVID. There are some athletes who would have been getting contracts, but because of COVID, there are no contracts. So a lot of them are really meeting hardships. So we decided that we would have to create these development meets, because what has happened, a lot of the foreign athletes are training and competing. Right. So we wouldn't want to have a situation where they are leading us when we get into the Olympics.
In other words, you wanted to level the playing field or the track?
Level the playing field.
Okay.
So we have expended today $64 million. We also provide financial support to athletes. A lot of our athletes, you might not know that, the public does not necessarily know that, but over the years, sometimes we spend $9 million, sometimes $10 million, sometimes $12 million for assistance to athletes. That's in our financial statements. These are athletes for training, for coaches' fee, for all sort of medical, so we provide that.
Okay, but this year though, this is a different year. I mean, starting last year with the COVID pandemic into this year. In fact, last year should have been the Olympics. It has been switched to this year. So it's not normal times, but we'll discuss your preparation and the pandemic situation a little bit later. But tell me, under normal circumstances, how does the JAAA's operate, as in its mandate and how it carries it out? Okay,
we are like any typical organization. We are efficiently run as any organization. So what we have an area that deals with athletes' welfare, that provides funding and support for athletes. So we do that every year. I just mentioned that.
Right.
We provide training for coaches. We provide training for executives. We provide infrastructure, equipment. We acquire equipment each year, at least I would say $10 million worth of equipment each year. We purchase it, like whether starting blocks, whether hurdles, or whatever type of commission equipment or technical equipment, like start information system, cameras, everything. So we spend a lot of money on equipment each year. Our budget is over $300 million. each year, and we do it for training of athletes. So these competitions we're talking about, and we expose it to competition. Let us look at something like Carifta. When we go to Carifta, we would send the maximum any country can send is 82. We send the 82, and Trinidad, number of countries would probably send 20 and 30, even the larger countries. So what we do, we give them exposure. And the type of exposure that they get, we will take them into international competitions even better. So we go to NACA competitions, so we expose to a lot of competitions. So they get international exposure. We give them training, as I just mentioned. We create training for coaches and officials. And so with all these, we create very good athletes.
All right. So let us look at it from another perspective, because we know the field is not level. We have a long history in athletics. Schools such as KC, Calabar, and their St. Jago for the female, traditionally they do well, but there are non-traditional schools that are producing athletes and are making a mark for themselves. Do you subsidize such institutions? Is there a role that you play in aiding them to come up to a certain standard?
No, that wouldn't fall in our remit in terms of subsidizing schools. But when the athletes reach a certain way and we see potential, like what now, we're having a camp. We're having camp on weekends now because school's out. So every Friday, Saturday and Sunday we have training sessions for athletes who may have decided have talent to go further. So we fund that athletes camp, training camp, every weekend now, and the coaches who coach them, we give them some form of subsidy. So we are here to continue the development and the training of athletes. We have the World Juniors, World Under 20 competition taking place in August, and we have the NACA Under 18 and Under 20 in July. And so all these athletes are being prepared to be competitive ready.
Looking at bodies such as ISA and JAAA, what's the relationship like? Is it a regulatory role that you have, and even before that, because all people start running early, from as early as basic school, people start competing. Do you play a regulatory role in terms of looking at the bodies that handle that?
Well, we have to sanction all these events. We have to sanction ISA, and ISA is in close touch with us. As a matter of fact, the president of ISA is now a member of our executive. So that will even enhance the relationship and better understanding of what they do, so that at the end of the day, that Jamaica benefits.
Okay. You said is now, so, which suggests that it's a new relationship.
It's a new relation. Well, prior to this, 4 years ago, there was another member of the ISA body who was also on our board. That member is no longer there, but the president has been one of our members since the last election in November 2020.
So does it depend on the personnel, or is there a seat for ISA?
There is no seat, because what we do when we are, it's like any body, when we are doing anything and want to create our executive, we look at people who can contribute. We look at people, areas in which there can be relationship to build track and field. ISA is a very large body, involves a lot of youth athletes, so that is one way. And the persons, and you have to look at the competencies of the persons you engage in your body. So you have to see core competencies that are complementary to development of track and field. So we look at folks who we think can help to develop track and field, and in this case we have used the president of ISA, whom we think he has the competencies that can help in our relationship.
Well, there's a J3As, there's a JAAA. How do both bodies work? As in the relationship between, and who has responsibility for what?
J3A is governing body for track and field. The Jamaica Olympic Association comes together when you have like you're having Olympics. Olympic has about 40 sports. So each country has a national association for Olympics. So what would happen when you have come to the Olympics now? The track and field team would come under the umbrella of the Jamaica Olympic Association, because it carries the body, but it is not responsible for track and field. So what does that mean now? If you notice, when we go to Olympics, it's usually mostly track and field. We're not undermining anybody, but you might find one swimmer or one boxer or somebody at each time. But it's really, track and field is really that carries Jamaica in terms of sports, in terms of the what they call it, exposure that Jamaica gets. It's really from track and field. But what we do, we're an independent body, so they come under the JAAA. So JAAA comes under JAAA whenever there is a Olympic. Swimming, the same thing, and whatever body that goes into the Olympic comes on JAAA. So it's not a situation where, so JAAA is an independent body that deals with Olympic events.
Okay, fair enough. I get
Right.
that. How does one become a member of the J3As?
You have to be an athlete who has competed at a senior level. That is one. You have to have special skills that can assist. You have to be anybody who has represented Jamaica, whether as a doctor or coach, massage therapist, manager. So anybody who has represented the country in the capacity of management or coaching, any doctor, everything. And people who have competed at a senior level, persons who have special skills that can help the development of track and field. Those are basically, and if you have degree from sporting institutions, let us say like GC Foster Youth Sports Department, and you have that certification and you work in the sport for 5 years non-stop, and you have the competencies that
so
can offer.
So is volunteering a part of that process? Do you volunteer first to be spotted, or do you identify the skills that you need, or do people apply?
People apply, and sometimes people may not be accepted because they don't fit the criteria. So in other words, they don't fit the criteria. But there are times when we might see somebody. It's not often that is done though, but people usually, as a matter of fact, a lot of people are attracted to the JAAs. So very often we get people requesting to be members, but we have our criteria, and these criteria will tell us whether these persons are okay. But sometimes they volunteer their services and come on a Saturday, come to these meets, and by so doing, after developing over the time, over years, we will now say these people are suitable. They have to apply, and it has to go through a body. In other words, sometimes you probably heard that people said, oh, the voting list. That's not so. Everybody who comes in the JAAA, it has to go through the board meeting, a full board, and the criteria, and it says, this person says, I'm applying to be a member, I'm a coach at GC Foster, I've been there for 10 years, and I've done so and so, and I've graduated from GC Foster with a degree in so and so. And then we go through it, and we go through the voting, and say whether this person is eligible for qualification. But nobody comes into the JAAs without going through this
vetting process.
This vetting process done at full board membership.
You know, there's the view sometimes that it seems to be a closed shop dominated by maybe KC, Calabar, JC, a small group. How would you respond to that in 15 seconds?
What you find in life, if you find KC successful in track and field, you will find more KC people seem to be interested in being part of the association. If they find more Calabar people, they'll be more inclined to forming part of it. Traditionally, you would have had a lot of KC people in the early stages. The JAAs was constituted in 1932, and you had a lot of outstanding people as part of that, including Norman Manley. But what you'd have found a number of prominent KC people were one of the leaders in track and field. They would have probably been part of the body. So they would probably encourage people from their institution or like minds to come in. And you find that, but the thing is, there's no barrier to entry. And it's just that, as I said before, what is attractive, if you see something and you are playing football, JC people more inclined to follow football than, say, a school in the country that's not well populated in terms of sports. So there's no barrier to entry. So people will say that because there are more people, as you just mentioned, on boards are associated than the others. But it's really the interest, and if somebody wants to get on, he can get on.
Thank you very much, Sir Ludlow.
Yes.
We go for a quick break. We'll continue our conversation with Sir Ludlow when we return. Welcome back to Inside Sports. I'm Nodley Wright. Still with me is Ludlow Watts, Master Starter and Treasurer of the Jamaica Administrative Athletics Association. Thanks for staying with us, Sir Ludlow.
Thank you, sir.
We're going to get into the nice part now, Sir Ludlow. National trials, national senior and junior trials. When does planning normally begin for this?
All right. The event this year is JAAA's Ministry of Sport Supreme Ventures National Senior and Junior Championships.
So you're giving plug to your sponsors. Very good.
No, man, they are title sponsors.
Okay.
So that's how it is.
Okay.
They are title sponsors. Ministry of Sport. So what has happened is that we would start normally, typically, we would start by end of December. By January, we start to put the things together. Because of COVID, there are so many uncertainties. And so we were really not able to do many precise things.
Right.
And as the time grew later, we are able to do more things. Now, what has happened is that we had to put a proposal to the government initially to start resumption of track and field, what we did in February. And then later, we came into looking at our national championship, usually staged in the nights, most of it in the evenings. Because what has happened now, with the COVID, with the what you call it, what the government has, the curfew, because of the curfew, we have had to look at starting earlier. But in track and field, for the sprint events, there are certain conditions. You would have been at track meets, boys and girls, some other meets, and you would see that at certain times, the wind is -5 in the 100 meters, -5 negative, and sometimes the next race is -2. So the wind factor is very unreliable and unfair to some athletes. So what we did, you notice in the Destiny series, we did meetings in the mornings because between 8 and 9:30, we have normal wind conditions. But after 9:30, it becomes a problem and it does not come back into normalcy until after 6 or thereabout in the evenings. So if we were to do that, we'd have a situation where we are going to breach curfews. So we had asked the government to make some concessions because this is a team going to represent Jamaica in the Olympics. This is a team going to represent Jamaica in the World Under-20 competition. It's the country. So we had asked them if they could do something to enable us to go a little later so that we might end up after traveling from the competition.
So you won't be in breach, in other words.
You won't be in breach. So the schedule that we have, it shows that on Thursday, one event in the morning, but we finished at 7:05. On Friday, we finished at 8:15. Normally, we'd have finished about closer to 9.
So let me get this clear. So this is your tentative, this is your proposal. It has been agreed to yet?
I can give you, no, this is the final, what we are doing. If they agreed,
Right, that's what I was trying to establish.
We might have to revert to what we had before.
Okay.
But we are doing this on the basis that we will not get approval. We're just making preparation.
Okay.
And we finish at 7:30 on Saturday. Typically, we would finish at about 9 o'clock when you have the last 100 meters and so.
Right.
And then Sunday would finish at 7. So for Sunday now, we have 8:15 to 11. What we have in the meantime is the juniors running in the mornings. They start in the morning.
And the juniors the trial starts on the 24th and goes up until the 27th.
But the juniors will be 24, 25, and 26 at this moment because of our situation whereby the Sundays won't be. It's a problem because curfew starts at 2.
Currently, we cut off at 2.
Right. The seniors work on Sunday morning. The morning session. So the juniors will only work for 3 days when Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. So that's what we have done in terms of preparation. So the preparation has been difficult. I said, in terms of preparing for this, we had to do these meets as we spoke about, and we had to do a lot of cost centers were created in terms of sanitizing, in terms of COVID marshals. We trained 659 COVID marshals to ensure that at competition nothing is breached. So all those preparations came into with medical, ODPM, Ministry of Sports. So we had to liaise with all these institutions to ensuring that we get the meet on.
I was about to ask you your concerns and how you'd have addressed them, but you addressed all of that in what you just said. So the next question is, how has these destiny meets prepared you for the national trials, aided you to be more efficient?
The first meet we had, the times were not so good. The second meet, the times were better from the same athletes.
Right.
And by third meet, the times were still better. And you'd have seen Shelley's performance. Then on top of that, in terms of the operational aspect of it, in terms of what happens on the day, we have put in place those equipment, those infrastructure, so that similar. So when we start our national championships, normally we'd have started from scratch each year.
Right.
But when we start now, we'd have had many of those infrastructures in place now, so it'll make it a little easier to run.
So it's a nice warm-up heading.
Yes, it's a warm-up.
Heading
just
into,
like how the
into
athletes
that.
were preparing.
Right.
Our system was also preparing us to making less seamless in terms of competition.
So even though it's a different environment and all of that, you should be running like a nice machine for that.
Yes, we should be running like a nice machine because the athletes are pumped up and are really raring to go. The officials are trained and prepared for the situation. And the executive of JAAA, we have had several meetings every week to sort of ensuring that all areas are adequately provided.
Okay. Let me ask you about the destiny meets quickly. It came out of a necessity. It has worked. Is this something that you plan to keep, make it an annual thing, or for an Olympic cycle?
Well, this is something that we are looking at because it came out of necessity, yes, and it has worked well. So what we are looking at though, because prior to this, there used to be individual institutions and groups that would have done these development meets, called development meets.
Right.
So because of what was happening now, we had to wrest control of all these meets. So we had to fund all of them and manage all of them. So the destiny meet has cost us a lot in terms of cash outlay, but it has also given us a lot of hope in terms of our preparation for athletes. The question you ask is whether it's going to continue. It will continue in some form, but it's not something I could speak to now because our executive will be looking at what can we gain from the destiny and how will it enhance track and field and in what form and can we do some form of it going forward. But it's something that's a good thing, and there will be some things that will be taken away from it if it's not necessarily in the same name and format.
Okay. This we can't miss out on at all. We have to discuss the Olympic camps, the pre-camps for Olympics. We learned earlier this week that Totori, which is our base whenever we go to Japan, the Japanese government has said, well, that can't take place. How has that affected the plans of the J3s for our athletes, and what will be done to replace that?
It will certainly affect our plans negatively. But you know that the Totori, the camp, is everything to do with the Olympics comes under Jamaica Olympic Association. And so we'll have to be in discussion with them to see what alternative we'll have, whether we'll do a camp in Jamaica or we do a camp somewhere else, or that is similar to the conditions that we would experience in Japan. So it's something that this is a new thing, new development, but by end of next week, we will have something in place. What do we do? What's the alternative? Where will we have a camp? But we need to have a camp because, certain groups have their coaches, but there are some individuals that do not have that support structure. So we have to make sure that they are sharp.
Normally at an Olympics, there are usually disruptions, or for want of a better word, disagreements in terms of camps and how we group the athletes together. With travel being restricted, do you foresee any such issues?
In life, what we do, we make the best preparations. We look at all aspects, all possibilities, favorable or unfavorable. And when we look at those possibilities, we'll ensure that we do our utmost, that things will be as cordial, harmonious as it should be. And we'll plan for any unfavorable situations that may occur. But what we are doing, we are not leaving any stone unturned. And we are making adequate preparation to deal with anything that may emerge. And so we should be able to deal with anything that emerges, because we plan for the good, bad, and the ugly, and we look at all aspects of our preparation.
Sir Ludlow, the troublesome side of me couldn't resist asking you this question. The false start rule, and there's this belief that none of our medal prospects will ever be disqualified, that if someone picks a start, then it will be charged to the field. There's that running joke. How would you respond to that?
Well, we operate under the World Athletics. I would say there's something. We have been to starting seminars up to 2019. And whenever I go, everything that takes place in Jamaica, everywhere, they have it on record. And they use it as a playbook to decide what went wrong and what should not have taken place. So there are standards they have certain standards, and they expect the officials to adhere to the standards. If you're an official and you breach, they are likely to bar you for life or to do anything to do from track and field, just like how they would do it from things to do with job-related matters.
Right.
So, you have to look at the world. This is Jamaica. This is 2021. Whenever you have an event, the whole world is looking at you. The whole world is looking at Jamaica. The whole world is looking at the event. So if you do not act professionally, it will not reflect good on Jamaica. There are Jamaicans who might feel that since you are the best athlete in Jamaica, you should represent Jamaica. The world does not look at it that way. The world look at it whether you're competent or you're honest. And the starters who are involved would not be looked on favorably by the world governing body in terms of competencies and honesty. And that person could be, if you're on a certain level, because we are involved in certain at their level, it could disqualify us and whatever in terms of what we are doing. But at the same time, you look at the country, because they say the people in Jamaica are dishonest. The people in Jamaica are dishonest. So there are folks who are insular, and there are a lot of folks who have no integrity in life. And so they would look at it and say that this person is Jamaica, so the best person must represent Jamaica regardless. People of integrity do not subscribe to that. And we have to act professionally. All I have to say is that we have to act professionally and do the right things and do our job properly. Each athlete who comes in Jamaica will have to come with a COVID test within 72 hours of arriving in Jamaica. Negative COVID test within 72 hours of arriving in Jamaica. That's the entry requirement. And then there are certain requirements that will be made in terms of having to test before if competing. So we have actually had discussions with the government on a number of issues, because a lot of these things, like the testing, was going to cost you like $8-9 million. If you have to do certain thing going in a bubble, the going cost like $15-17 million. So those are the permutations we are looking at, and the government is understanding the cost centers, but at the same time they also want to ensure that it's a safe event and Jamaica does not a problem fall out in terms of that sort of situation. So it's a balancing act, and everybody is doing its utmost to ensuring that everything is done the best thing for Jamaica, best for the athletes, and best for our country.
And finally, have all the athletes been communicated with in terms of this? And have they accepted how this will work?
We were we are doing so in the process now, belatedly, and the reason why is because we had asked for certain things to be concessions that were not coming quickly enough. So we don't want to send signals, say that, and then next thing we do something else, and they say, but you told us that we didn't have to do that. So the reason why we are not here prepared for that is because you told us that. That's how a human being works. So we therefore have to be mindful of that. And what we say, at the moment, this is the situation. You have to come within 72 hours of landing in Jamaica. So that is something that everybody has to understand at this moment.
Thank you very much, Sir Ludlow. No one can accuse you of not being open and honest. That's all the time we have for this episode. Thank you very much for coming, Sir Ludlow Watts, Treasurer of the Jamaica Administrative Athletics Association, Master Starter, and Chief Organizer of the National Senior and Junior Trials. Did I get that right? I know it's Chairman of the Organizing Committee,
okay. Well,
but I chose to refer to you as such.
Yes, that's fine.
Again, thank you very much, Sir Ludlow. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.